So why do I believe that green smoothies are superior? In this section, we are going to talk about why green smoothies are so great. And if you're somebody who has been experimenting with the raw food lifestyle for some time, or maybe you're just somebody who is just starting, I think that the chances are pretty high that you are struggling with three things. And that is eating enough calories, eating enough nutrients, and managing the volume. So this means eating amount of food that is actually comfortable for your stomach, so that you are not feeling like you are exploding every single meal and that you just want to lay down in bed after you are done eating. So as I mentioned, most of the people struggle with calories, nutrients, and volume, and this happens for a few reasons. So let me talk about the first reason first. So most of the people who are into fruitarian or high fruit diet really focus on eating sweet fruit because obviously we do need to have sufficient amount of calories for our energy needs, but the matter of fact is that sweet fruits are not really a complete source of nutrients. So sweet fruits typically are low in protein, they are low in fat, and they are low in minerals. And so if we base our diet only on sweet fruits, we can experience craving. That is at least my experience. The second type of fruit that is often eaten on the raw food diet is subacid and acid fruits, and I must say that subacid and acid fruits are generally higher on nutrients, especially minerals like iron and calcium. They're also great sources of omega-3s, especially when we talk about berries. But on the other side, these subacid and acid fruits are very low in calories, so we really need to eat a huge amount of them to fulfill our caloric needs. So then the volume that I mentioned about just becomes very, very large, and that is just difficult. So eating only sweet fruit doesn't fulfill our needs. Eating only subacid and acid fruit is also pretty challenging because it requires really huge amount of food eaten. And the third thing is that leafy green vegetables or vegetables in general are really great source of nutrients, like the most nutrient-packed food on the planet. They are really also great sources of protein, but again they contain a lot of insoluble fiber, and they are very low in calories. So if we would like to base our meals on vegetable meals without adding significant calories from fat, we just cannot feel satiated. So most of the people who don't understand these simple facts really struggle between these things that I mentioned. So how to get the right amount of calories while eating the right amount of nutrients, but then just keeping the volume of food in the range that feels manageable for your day-to-day schedule, manageable for your time that you have for eating, and manageable for your body in general, because your body has some constraints, has some restrictions, and can eat only as much food in one sitting, right? And so let me share with you my journey with eating a very high sweet fruit diet. So at the beginning of my journey, like I mentioned, that was 2015, I really got into a high fruit diet, and I ate a lot of bananas and a lot of dates. At the time I also had pretty good access to papayas and mangoes, but my calories and grapes, but my calories were mostly coming from bananas and from dates, and I was not so much into vegetables. And at the beginning it worked really amazing. Like my energy was really through the roof. I looked very radiant. I felt really, really good. Like my skin was smooth and my hair was amazing. Like I looked like suddenly I was 5 years younger or something like that. But unfortunately this was not sustainable for me long term. And at one point I just started to have a belly bloating, and I had cravings, and I was also not eating adequate amount of fat because I was a bit fearful about how much fat to eat. And so all this ended up with me basically experiencing different kind of situations. And so during my journey I experimented with many things. I experimented with enemas, I experimented with juice fasting, I experimented with eating really huge amount of fruit, and at that time I really gained a lot of weight. I think 12 to 15 kilos. I was not heavy. I was not even that heavy when I was pregnant, during my 4 pregnancies. So it was really the most amount of weight that I ever gained when I was eating the high sweet fruit diet. And then I also had moments when I really ate a lot of vegetables. And because the vegetables were very filling in terms of the volume in my stomach, I was not eating enough calories. So I was losing weight and I was very skinny. I also had period of times when I had the overt fat-free diet, and it also worked for some time, but it was not sustainable long term. And it was pretty frustrating because I had this experience, which I had at the beginning when I started with the raw foods, and I just wanted to hold to that feeling of just feeling amazing, vibrant, and full of energy and everything, but I just didn't know how to do it. So at this point, I started to research more, and I started to really read a lot of books about nutrition, even malnutrition, eating disorders, human psychology, and I don't know how many books I read. I shared as I was reading these books on my Instagram account, and it was just really, really amazing journey full of information, and I learned so much from that. And what was really coming from that research was that in order to feel satiated and even to have desire to eat, we need to eat the food that we love, because our body is always communicating with us. We need to eat the food that has the nutrients, that has the calories, and not only the nutrients, micronutrients, but also the macronutrients. And I have the feeling that in the raw vegan movement, macronutrients are usually talked about as something like carbohydrates are favorable, but protein and fat is not. And that's not true, because all these macronutrients, all 3 of them, have important roles and functions for our health. So it's important to realize that we shouldn't undermine any of them, and they all matter. And so as I was doing this research, and I was finding about the balanced approach, which included calories, nutrients, and adequate volume of food that we can actually manage in one sitting, I started to play around with getting more vegetables, and especially the leafy green vegetables, into my diet, because I knew that leafy green vegetables were really the powerhouse of nutrients. But because they were so difficult to chew, especially spinach and kale and collard greens and like a little bit more hardy vegetables, I was just not able to get them down in one sitting when I was chewing on salad. And so what I started to do first, I started to blend them in my blender with a little bit of water and straining them through a nut mill bag, because at that time I had only the vertical juicer, I think was Huron juicer, and I was not that great in juicing leafy greens. And so I just didn't have the patience to, feed the juicer with all these bulky amount of leafy green vegetables, because it just really took a long time, and what was coming out from them was a lot of foam. So I started to do this blending of greens with a little bit of water and just straining it through nut milk bag. And this worked pretty all right, although the taste was not so amazing. But I did see the glow, and I did see the effect of doing this. And so this is how my journey has been evolving. So at one point I realized that I actually don't have to strain the water, and that I can just blend the greens with fruit, because if I blend the fruit with greens, I can actually achieve better taste and better consistency. So I was experimenting a lot with this. And at the beginning, of course, there were a lot of failures, and the smoothies just sometimes didn't taste good. But it was a process, and I think that it was really amazing experience when I'm looking back to that time right now. And of course, during this time, there were also quite some struggles that I experienced on my green smoothie journey. And some of the struggles involve getting the right ingredients, like really having the right food at home in right amount, and variety, and also the greens. And so in the following video, I would like to talk about how to get ready for preparing green smoothies, like what kind of ingredients to use, where to get them, how to store them, and all the practicalities that concern making your green smoothie preparation really, really easy process.